Dear modern nations individually grouped and together to where we are really supposed to be in relationship to our quality of fact, treatment, nature, treatments of positive, words like positive, words like value progression. We cannot have the long words of our species and or nor the proper short words. For example, on the great Gutfield show on CNN, or not on Fox News, he was saying was mind-boggling about how the media misinterprets the humor of the president, trying to have humor each president in a semi-ancient trap, each identity of leader. So this is what this is. The solution is this: we make a virtual historical leaders. We take to counter positions the fundamentals. We need to speak in relationship to what we can only discern through uses of others' names. Who trains? All names were stole, like legions, native pure, when true behold. So there is an identity of the ground relationship that is native pure, and its identity of relationship to itself that causes evolution's fruits and gifts. And it works with ground. I'll gather around. Bach sings, connects all things. It's an identity of value progression that only increases as the identity of its identity of volume has to itself. And how cause science reveals this, but we need free speech for this. We simultaneously need freedom of religion. We simultaneously need to understand Marbury versus medicine. We simultaneously need to understand originally and still how the branches of government individually grouped and together were forced only capable of valuing criminally foreign influence sequence treatments, premises treatments, finite treatments, finite truth treatments, active truth treatments, progressive treatments, and identity treatments, criminally foreign influence, and then that defended as victims are shocked and awe when presented concepts like Jim Crow and they're like slavery. Slavery is one method. Is one method. There's a whole bunch of bonded methods, but by the method of it greatest, all inside of it, everyone, including our founders, before they were born, already that was entrenched here, north and south. Colonies, the phenomenon of how they were manifest, was in relationship to an identity of the ground already Native Americans A through Z were right and were the most expert on. Then how the colonists A through Z, how nations A through Z, how sciences stewards A through Z, database relationship stewards A through Z were blaming the real cause of other things other than themselves, of the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature. Acts like predicate acts. Nature's like criminal diseases, nature's wrongdoers. Wrongdoing. I'm not a lawyer, not a police form, not a criminal. I'm an expert on the nature of English grammar. And nature is identity, and as identity is that value. In relationship, this is the identity of value that is inseparable from all things that science reveals. This is how all parts of English grammar are identities of volume in relationship to this one identity of value progressions, identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that not only increasing but distinctly, non distinctly, and simultaneously onto Earth, space nature, where Earth is round and flat at the same time. All things are in demonstration of how one identity of value progression, how its identity of relationship to itself, and how the value of that is inseparable from the smallest thing, boxing. So it is the value of the order of the finite. And this is where all values and all value systems individually grouped in together. This is why our words are attached to. But now, see, we have markets value positions never liberated, only through comparison to what was hurt by this first. Native Americans did great damage control. Nature has been. So they have theater and they have identity ground locations, the way everything was made to set up. Everyone was a victim, forced to just be a job, be a title, as told to do it, how to do it. Then perpetually they complain, they call it training. That no one knows how to speak about it, so they have specialists on this. See, but they have that abridged. They have other people thinking for like psychologists. You don't have to be a psychologist to be an expert on science, like I am, like on the nature of English grammar and nature's identity and and it has an identity of relationship to itself that is positive or negative. See, Earth's nature has us as an identity of negative value, nature progression as its value, as nature. Nature is value simultaneously. Only for we are only one little species is why and how we only so for so long, even though we've been in negative value nature progression, Earth's distinct Earth's simultaneously distinct advantage in relationship to the unceasing identity of relationship to the equal sign. I didn't read this. There are proofs that the equal sign is per logic, with no criminal foreign influences, revealed by ancients as inside as value nature inside values nature. And this is where all values individually grouped together are a demonstration of the same value, which is this one identity that the sciences share. That the body of all identities of value progression individually grouped together are distinctly, but also non-distinctly and also simultaneously. So as a nature, it is a simultaneous nature. As an identity, it is as an identity of relationship to itself. That is valued distinctly onto those three semi-natures, onto its value progression, onto the value of that, which is again its identity of relation to itself, and the value of that. And so positive and negative are with this identity of volume. We are identity, species, body of value as nature, and nature is value simultaneously. While we are humanity, nature is value, and value as nature. In that sequence, simultaneously. Everything is designed in demonstration of the identity of the simultaneous nature that we are all semi-nature relationship to. As a complete nature, we are an individual. Simultaneously, we are a semi-nature, not just sexes, ages, areas, not just physical culture. We are the species bond to this one invisible identity. We are at the same time all and identities of value, progression, individual, good together, and distinctly as a species, this trinity. Per how it already demonstrated and demonstrates evolution's zenith, which is where and how, and is how the perfect world increases. All finite, individual, grouped, and together at once. Or it's forced from here, Lethe of Hades. So there are two semi-natures relevant with. It's relevant to, from, as, with, and for the three parts of the Trinity. That is not just per Jesus Christ and Catholicism and or Christianity and or derivatives. See, those derivatives are identity ground and justification and treatments of positive and negative of identity that defenses of themselves are kept simultaneously need to pretend their integrity for what formed everyone for roles as victims, self-valuing, a breaching method, entrenchment, breaching screen, and breaching tools, roles, breaching weapons, roles. People have A, B logic. Oh, it's good to have a job, but they leave out the extortion on each location, on each position of each location, area, and state, including differentially in relationship to different things. More importantly, and so and often not. There's a differential, but I'm in relationship. I forgot to mention the leader's voice. So that's an individual voice. So now locations, areas, and states are pseudo positive. And that was already used remotely. Pseudo positive has criminal and seditious natures of positive. No, a criminal and seditious nature. Someone who committed a predicate act. Someone who committed and commits wrongdoing, like sequence shifts. Identity thefts, natures of it, missed since founding. Identity frauds, missed since founding with treatments of what slavery was about, not by accident, because we're in the same trap. Sickly, distinctly, to keep self-valued, how sickly, non-distinctly from being discerned, let alone countered. And with all the counters already, that's part of the method. Everyone built blaming other things other than themselves and then defending that. Time reasons, health reasons. Everyone's victim and needed to react. Fact, cheap nature. No one follows mandated law. Because we have the branches of government individually grouped and together themselves already having been used remotely. The campuses they went to, ones that didn't even go to them, they're all victims, Oz, of this that which is off campuses of each age and nature, including homeschool. And I don't know if you can't hide from this. This is hiding from, plotting against, and offensively hurting anyone who tries to use the long words of our species to answer the questions humanity has in evolution has demonstrated wanted us to be asked. Now, this is an example I'm making for other reasons. I don't know if this is the best, but I forget that. So, what we could do, we make these each nation, which nation wants to be trained by the species coach? will be rewarded. One reward you make up, you have artistic figures, and you make up. Well, in other words, we draw our founding parents into counter positions, and we when we use this in relationship to the breaching method, which is already recorded actually, is that and how each modern nation self-valued criminally foreign influence sciences roles with that which hurt everyone, which engineered nations individually grouped and together themselves, incapable of defending themselves, where and how it counts, and anyone and themselves and anyone else at the same time. So they do it. Nations torturing nations, pretending other simultaneously, pretending because everyone's backed into jobs titles about things, but not unabridged, but pretending other. So how could we discern? How could we know more about things that CNN have been reporting on with Ukraine, with Russia, with elections, with Facebook? Because they are recorded involved with other natures of organized crime, per one method here originally still. And what it uses is their justifications of their premises treatments. Is their justifications of their treatments of what is positive or negative. Their uses of each word slash value, each phrase. Now, see, they have already had this happen to everyone. What it causes and keeps, like negative value nature progressions, acts of nature, like the bar itself, criminally foreign influenced, abridged, law nature, pretending other, breaching screen, breaching tool, worse than breaching weapon, victims, but victim predators to spot, pretending integrity anyway, criminal readings of statutes original and still, criminally foreign influence readings of statutes originally and still, through an actually recorded breaching method, effectively having been made self-valued by each modern nation victim of it, each semi-nation victim of it, only capable of preserving themselves as locations, areas, and states in collusion against correlation nature simultaneously inherent active and progressive means, and against its two inseparably bonded semi-natures of sequence nature. Sequence nature's complete identity is as a simultaneous nature. This is from bigger than and from smaller than and from beyond infinity. And this is from before three natures of zero, while being three natures of zero that will only increase as more identity of forever nature making more and more of itself through a whole bunch of temporary slash lasting forever natures. More and more bonds in the value of bonds are formed because of these distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationships that this one identity of identity of relation to itself it has, and the value of that, the identity of value progression that is the scientific value that algebra was revealed for the discernment of. But see, then the identity of algebra with the identities of the sciences, they were parted from observation of and use of the identity of relativity, that which inventions work or not in relationship to, that which inventions are further positive or not in relationship to, indifferentially. See, we have AB logic by the only people capable of um, having any kind of a reaction, effect upon the identity of negative value nature progression, where humanity has nations individually grouped and together with weapons of natures, even with guns, still. Whereas they have all natures of sophistication further and further invested, all peaceful in relationship to overtly sick, still overtly sick also, and incapable of defending their positions as the only ones that are allowed to deal with it, internation relations. And that has kept the outcome by a torture method that tortures the individual nations individually, grouped and together, effectively undiscerned, effectively having self value. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson, he was a former standing chairperson on Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. And this was, he's involved with people that were all tied to my uses of, so they put people to fake words. They involve people with falsified police reports, forging names, switching names. My town's police department through lifetimes, all with the new and 1 years ago police chief. 1 years ago, our police chief had a girlfriend that lived in a house. Reportedly, his girlfriend, 2 houses down from me, has a relative involved with Whiting Forensics Place, with a whole bunch of prosecutors and judges, and his extended family members involved with human trafficking, a whole bunch of natures of child abuses. People all along Weathersfield, Church Street, people on Church Street recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with this house also, involved with organized predicate acts, wrongdoing tied to that, at least. There's a whole bunch of different ways, a whole bunch of people. These are the same ones, intercampuses of each age and nature through time. They have uses of school resource officers, each identity of the ground, relationship to job title. Identity, they're going to then defend themselves, everyone speaking through others. So, former director of the FBI down, my town's police chief, a Cintron, and his immediate and extended families recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with Weathersfield Interbranch, on and off Weathersfield Police Department, with former director of the FBI down, other agencies and their family members involved with predicate acts with them, wrongdoing with them, sequence shifts with them, mail crimes, wire crimes, forging names, switching names. A whole bunch of people tied to and as to Mendez police brothers, to Domain police brothers, Thaddeus Skrabowski, and Mulcahy girls who reportedly from other people pretended to have conversation with me ever. I never had a conversation with her in my life. Any one of those, Alison McKay or her sister, I never had a class with them. She had a person who was in a class with me with Anthony Agman. He's still on on Facebook. One of the people recorded involved with uses of Facebook interbranch in the Brit Superior Court is involved with it, Anthony Agman, and with the Joshua Julian, and with people with the last name Knerr, and with the Kerr family, involved with also a Kovinskis family, and people intercities involved with military police, with predicate acts roles, wrongdoing roles, sequence shifts, falsified police reports roles, child abuse roles with elderly homes criminally, and with my new and past neighbors. I don't know. And they're also used forging names, switching names, just because they were my neighbors don't mean I know them. The extended family members of them. Recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with a pattern tied to of confessions and of actually of predicate acts roles with a Dillon family. A whole bunch of people recorded, confessed, and demonstrated a pattern of his roles with body dumping spots and with the person of a serial killer involved with predicate acts with them. Also with judges that put him away, and with the prison stewardships and with the leaderships of the prison stewardships on and off Central Connecticut State University, on and off other universities like Wesleyan University, involved with the same ones tied to all these ways, tied to houses on my street and people associated with the house that came in when I was in fourth grade. Now they're all Bryan brothers that also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. So they're also involved with Congress. They invested, they were used remotely though by a whole bunch of other nations, and none of them can punish it because they self-valued roles with that here and there, not for the reasons they even realized completely. Because before they were sophistication, real sophistication was sophistication. Here, this method that prevents actual sophistication, as evidence is in relationship to the overtly forsaken and how to counter it and all opinions regarding it. They're leaving out their roles with live aggressions to those spots already. They're hid with more predicate acts roles, methods, natures of motivations, all bonded by the method that kept them originally instilled, preventing our founders' course and their stolen, forced words on them, forced to entertain criminal and seditious nature by them, forced pretended, forced righteously glorified. Because that's what plays out when you have the abridged sciences and the surface values of the Constitution are the only thing that matters. And why? They are simultaneously one identity. Doesn't matter who knows what amendment is what. It matters that you understand that and how James Madison was a fact cheaping nature slave, how George Washington was a fact cheaping nature slave, and they wanted us to tell this. They wanted us to say, look, this is what the Constitution is about, these freedom of speech. You don't steal our words, media, and pretend passions and emotions with the interbranch that forge names and switch names so they keep using their locations to hide live progressions. All these other nations that they're pretending to be against, those are ones with crimes with them. Poor Russia, poor America at the same time, because we have Americans against Americans top down, Russians against Russians, on off the Department of Homeland Security officers involved with all these people, on off Fox Connecticut News. Fox Connecticut News, no, at the end of their building, their tall building, you guys are pretending most of the time. I'm asking you, just fix your fake news and your roles with WFSB and playing softball in Weathersfield, because those locations are further with the elections crimes that you guys also brought up as predators. You guys aren't supposed to be doing entrapment, let alone making up things about people and roles with uses of that on campuses. This was set up to keep everyone with our identity stolen and rolls with it or forget about it. Now there are a whole bunch of people with the policing on off the clubs downtown Hartford, on off New Haven. Also with the Casper family, I also never had a class with, who's also recorded with a whole bunch of people involved with uses of coaches, where the interbranch family members are attaching people to fake words, fake locations, fake recorded ties to themselves and others through time, and that's being exploited. This is being exploited by and as what was forced with slavery that involved zoning laws, that involved the fire department, that involves it then and now with their theater. Oh, this is this guy. He's the greatest guy. Everyone's the greatest guy. When we start play games like that, when everyone was roles with criminally foreign influence databases. That's what that's what Jim Crow laws are about. Breaching criminally foreign influence sequence treatments and identity of value treatments, finite, the order of the finite, the order of what are active value treatments, individually grouped together, and the values of that beyond the sequence treatments, to the identities of sequence nature further. The value of what is progressive. See the people stacking in New York City and people in nations across the globe that has a relationship to the tactically denatured suburban pathology forced without slavery of homes. Now it's distinctly and non-distinctly specifically for the same fact treatment nature organized crime method, where that make with the proper with that which was propagated were premises treatment natures, sequence treatments natures, mass dishonest. Everyone calling it on other things, others and themselves. All that stayed and stays fluent through that. Only capable of being an identity of negative value nature progression, acts in nature, roles through incapable of allowing the free speech of anyone not theater, incapable of allowing an individual to have theater when the same networks that are mixed with news were and are being coached to hide their interbranch sources and their family members already criminally foreign influence uses of databases of people's time, of people's health, of people's potentials, of every identity of the ground location, let alone people, let alone the people stacked. We can't counter the organized crime that set that up and keeps it blamed on other things other than themselves. All it is capable of causing, you know, without being this quality of logic, this quality of psychology. So now I learned about this myself. I only really learned from psychologists. I went to psychologists before the World Trade Center attack. People made confessions. I found out later. This is people involved with it. They have the Hartford courts, New Britain courts, Middletown courts were involved with people leading up to the when the Trade Center attack involved with predicate acts on off campuses connected. Sequence shift child abuses where they have the whole ages of people that down to the finite. They spread lies, attach people to fake locations, fake words, fake knowledge of other people that know their names, but they know our names, but we don't know theirs. They're involved with falsified police reports, mail crimes, wire crimes, uses of AT&T, uses of people who already retired from interbranch all levels. Originally and still, criminally foreign influence, delusions, raw victim predators, sick predators. What is Jim Crow law? What are Jim Crow laws? There's also a breaching tool. So for the responses of it now, not just then measured and maintained incapable of defending, of answering questions regarding litigation, regarding positive treatments, regarding identity treatments, regarding time treatments, regarding integrity treatments, regarding patriotism treatments, and defending themselves at the same time. In other words, forgot what I was too long. So this is what we do. We have to realize that and how premises treatments of the identities of other. We have them doing it the same. You see, what is misprision, where is corruption? There of colleagues, because there was uses of locations of the ground by foreign and domestic in collusion here and there, which keeps all the identity ground locations, every single one of them, each the distinct identity manifest as one from what is for our side and the other side in collusion, kept needing to hide life progressions, kept not fathoming how they would have to keep describing things to themselves and to the others, and how that was being used by no one is discerning it. There's no integrity here or there. Science never. You think a nation here or there has the integrity of having the type of weapons and entrenched defenses of that and defenses of that as identity, but having no one ulterior, and the whole time left out how that was employed originally, and still left by our founders to demonstrate they won't let us have free speech because they still had entrenched what was already engineered. All liars, pretending to be other. All identity thefts, frauds, and racketeering, worse than war crimes, method roles. Simple method was it unity only capable of being fathomed sick, insidious. Through this method of training, one nation believes. Not me in this identity of value progression in my plan, because no one else is anything but fake identity of job, identity of title, knowledge, or that can only be discerned through contrast, application, counter application, not correlation. They'll hurt who's not respecting their a bridge. They can't put it on paper. What they say on in the media. See, but they want to debate that out of sequence, so they can't follow mandated law. They've been coached by the courts. See, they have misprisions. They have to pretend to be against what they're already. The courts pretending to be against elections corruption already used Facebook itself to lie about what is actually recorded over Facebook. Had used Connecticut Congress, a whole bunch of nations already had used locations on and off Central Connecticut State Universities, ties to child campuses, intercities through time connected with their roles with falsified police reports tied to their identity theft, frauds, racketeering, lies, progressions, acting tied to that, pretending passions and emotions. Oh, that's not really why we hate them, though. Like the former. So they have to pretend things from backgrounds where there's no means to communication. They can't follow mandated law. So they stacked whole families, dozens of people tied to each one of those. Two Mendez police, two Domain brothers, and Allison Mulcahy, her sister. I never had a conversation with her. People associated with prosecutors and judges, and the Mayano family recorded confessed sequence shifts, evidence crimes, rule uses where they spread lies and stuff between people, illusions. They use knowledge of what they learned interbranch to hide what kept that originally still criminally foreign influence on each age of fact treatment nature rolls with it further and further to all locations. was already per what was there between tribes A through Z. Everyone had to react to it, what it caused, and kept all fakes. And so they blamed other things, others, and they blamed themselves. And everyone was locked into and as fact cheaping nature slaves, and sickly distinctly. And everyone was incapable of explaining how, sickly non-distinctly, even though it was there to be explained. For reasons also consciously, methodically engineered. They kept everyone, all locations, areas, and states self-employed. Sensibilities, nervous systems of a breaching method. Even if someone could form a unity other than what had, they wouldn't be able to do it as anything other than a criminal and ceaseless nature unity. Then self-defended perpetually. A quality of human fact sheet in nature without the sophistication that since that semi-ancients before semi-ancient criminal re-engineering of internation relationships came. Then latter semi-ancient nations, the messengers of religions, preserved. Islam helped preserve algebra, still not preserved properly. The ancients revealed. Most probably, I didn't read this demonstrably. The lowercase z is the equal sign. The uppercase z will only stay positive onto itself. So it points back towards A. That's what causes evolution's fruits and gifts. The bottom of the Z is where we're not its complete nature's complete nature of relationship to itself. So we stay the bottom of the Z as temporary positive, as temporary / lasting negative. Positive still longing its perfection though. Our volume. Said where heaven and hell came to were revealed as terms of science to teach this which nature demonstrates. And nature again is identity and identity, its identity of relationship to itself. There's one identity of volume that is self-generating. So we have freedom of religion and fake counters, fake sides of freedom of religion that are still contained. And then they keep that self-value with all locations, areas, and states. For example, each branch of government, each formal conviction nature, each formal opinion nature already had to hide what they were actually recorded with and as, and to, and from. And with, and for, what they're really for. They're victim predators, the same way the overt criminal enterprises are kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts with them, the same finite lies with them, same uses of Facebook for federal crimes with them, with child offenders on off campuses, same ones involved with all the different kinds of drugs like mescaline, acid, mushrooms, you know. So people, there's a Walters family, and there are foreign and domestic medical families, and police forms on off the schools in town, on off businesses next to them, involved with on Church Street. There's an Old Town Cafe, which is right around the corner from, was right next to the Webb House. And there's a corner on the corner of that street, Main Street, and on the corner of Main Street and Church Street, Connecticut Media and Weathersfield Police. They're recorded involved with crimes with child sex offenders' families. Other people on Church Street. These are people also on off Central Connecticut State University, Paul Manafort Drive, with Russians Also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with medical racketeering acts, or worse than that, roles with the Lethe family. Nothing personal, I don't know them. She repeated that to me. A woman at Harvard Hospital. They use forced mental evaluation to forge names, switch names, and to fake conversations with people. Families that have been doing that every campus I went to. They also exploit their roles with all along roads, routes, highways, corners, perception, and then fact cheating nature, reception of that perception. This is a breaching organized crime method. They have parks. So this is intercities, but it's also worse than interstates. So thank you for coming out this evening. This is what you do. I give you permission to do that. Um, make artistic figure, whatever that animate thing makes. Keep it transparent for the people of your nation, especially nations with nuclear bombs. And then you guys could, and we could fight you guys to who can make the nations that are trying to approach or about to or on whatever, have them also not needed, not wanted. See, we have to do that by putting back the native system that is native pure. It's already set up. So that we have to set up the ancient gaming system. It's no joke when you hear it in Little Rap Guy and Friends. They're trying to liberate the species, the cartoon value nature system. Which a cartoon every day is one way to do it. So they'd say, "Oh, well, let's keep it positive for the kids." Those same people involved with that, they have their own kids involved with them, with organized crime acts, predicate acts that are bonded. As for example, a whole bunch of different natures of organized crime involved with sequence shifts commonly. Now, this is why it's necessary. They have criminal readings of statutes, making things up, pretending things into branch locations. Before they did that, they were maintained criminally foreign influence, child abuse, roles with predicate acts, with databases, and wrongdoing, all mass wrongdoing roles. Then kept worse because then these people want to be identities of titles, identity of the ground location stewards that are also database relationships, identity relationships. They grew up making stories, spreading stories, not just doing that because they have influence to it, specifically for identity thefts, frauds, worse than racketeering, interstate cities and worse than interstates, but also categorically interstates tied. They have each identity ground. So we have doctors are one of the most valuable things. Get sick, you'll value a doctor. But we have a whole bunch of doctors that have nothing to do with doctor being medical legitimacy originally and still. Their delusions raw. They're involved with various natures of courts, with the uses of their databases and of their families' roles, with the uses of the databases of campuses, private and public, and in relationship to even the homeschool people, recorded and involved, used effectively by the same breaching method, effectively for as their crimes with people on the child sex offender registry and their family members, further involved with Connecticut media, with election spots, with Weathersfield town offices, with on-off religious spots. Everyone speaking through other people and those locations and sensibilities, preventing and having prevented mandated law and worse. Now, so they need to pretend they're against such. So they have misprising a whole bunch of fake sides. Each branch of government originally still was used sickly as victims, but as victims that need to hide that perpetually, same way everyone else does. And not me. That's why I'm no, unless you're going to be exploited. I mean, not people who don't want who are going to. That's why they're worse than extortion. So that's where we have to be able to counter the mail crimes and the wire crimes that go in the on and off Weathersfield Police Department and on and off New Britain Superior Court. People tied to an Anthony Agman still involved with people with fake Facebook pages and fake YouTube pages pretending to be me. These are also people recorded, confessed, and demonstrated he confirmed Joe Aiello on Facebook, real or made up. He confirmed, like I never had a class with him. They one time they pretended other that they could have filmed other was like I mean the perception of other was that's like some dance that was in a gym with all the tables still out and everything like that was like weird. And he's one of the ones involved now with the sex offenders' families. He's involved with wrongdoing with them, and so they're stacking so many people's names. I can't get a response. And these are people that pretend not to understand people because they faked conversations with me. 3 times they did this. Now they're further involved with this Dillian family in another pattern with the people with Hartford Hospital, with other hospitals in Hartford reported, confessed, and demonstrated involved with a detective Samuda, also involved with child sex offenders with predicate acts, with judges with them, and with black and white themed organized crime acts on and off the Weathersfield State Judicial Branch offices, houses next to it with a Fianza family, and with other people on off Fox Connecticut News involved with them, with these tremendous police, with this domain police forms family, and this intercity. That's Hartford, Connecticut. This is also the people from my town involved with identity thefts. To have someone sit across from you, pretend they know you, attach you to fake words, fake responses to the roles with uses of religious too. Because this is a person, the domain families recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with uses of how they are Jewish for evidence crimes. Now, also that was confessed and recorded and demonstrated by people associated with New Britain Superior Court who have organized crime acts roles with and uses of a Jewish community center and of prosecutors or involved with them with on-off religious spots, with falsified police reports, human trafficking, sequence shifts, time impositions, health impositions, attaching little kids and their family members to fake locations with doctors, fake ties to doctors, fake ties to mental diagnosis. They have the phenomenon of statutes where if someone walks by, they lie about people's actual physical behavior. They put pretend people yell, switching identities of people too, switching other people's identities, switching their own identities. They're using time always too fast, too slow because they're using the databases. They're using the value of other people having already done that. These are a whole bunch of people in Washington, D.C. and with the World Trade Center who are on the house in the corner of Church Street and the one associated with the Hanson family. There's a Bruce Hanson. I forgot his wife's name. I don't barely know them. I never had a conversation with them. And she's involved with Weathersfield Police and her brothers with Weathersfield Police and police forms associated with the DMV and with former director of the FBI and his co-defendants and their family members involved with predicate acts with them and with child sex offenders' families and with a house on my street /S associated also with this Dillon family, with foreign and domestic military, overt criminal enterprises, sexual circles, also with the World Trade Center and the courts involved with it criminally, and circuits like with mayors. All that is actually manifest. World Trade Center, what they say, peaceful. Manifest into your campus of each age and nature, each type of expert, each type of reaction to what is really through the kids. They have all just sick fakes. CT breaks. So they can't defend themselves and their treatments and uses of identities already originally instilled in us from what use them and uses them through criminal foreign influences pretending other. Originally instilled, they had all forms of charity involved with this. We have to counter this by admitting every location tactically criminally denatured, caused to negative value nature progressions, acts of natures, and this involved with where we are fact treating nature as value as nature and nature as value simultaneously, which is why we are a humanity and why we are the body of value species simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, where we are nature as value. English is revealed to teach this. So what will only stay positive unto itself is before and is beyond, while being the value of equality as the lowercase z, those two dashes, as the uppercase z. This is about the invisible but still discernible. The uppercase z is positives also, temporary positives also, temporary slash lasting positive relationship to itself, where and has and how each self's relationship to what is to this identity of value progression that is only increasing. It lifts and gifts and stays, or is forced away, it goes. It leaves. Lethe of Hades. For space nature transfer. YouTube.com/user/Romulus Well. You heard it here. I teach you all. For space nature transfers properly, how we should teach about what Lethe of Hades meant to the ancients. They can't defend the sciences, their abridged treatments and uses of their identities and of what they claim as value and as value progression as victims, the same way the overt criminal enterprises are kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts with them, finite lives, and with the branches of government needing to hide life progressions horizontally towards the people and intercampuses of each age and nature. So we have various natures of courts also involved with a Mike Levine, also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with peace home child offenders and with medical racketeering and police forms intercities with the schools and with these people with the officer McGee's, not the one who finally said they only have one officer named McGee, and the other ones have been using that name and were involved with them with predicate acts against each age of fact should be nature, as we'll examine the pretending I don't know about the law just because I'm not a lawyer. But in other words, they're making things up against and they have lawyers in collusion with them. Crime methods like pretending they don't understand people. But now, and they use conspiracy theory as a phrase recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with Russians against Russians and Americans against Americans, as those people involved within as our only counters to overtly sick things like nuclear weapons, like that, and how we're in the base since before cars, forced with the fact, nature, torture of, and slavery of our founding parents. Like how we have passions and emotions by people perpetually through lifetimes, pretending other only able to get away with it because of the sick natures of bonded educational impositions associated with the formal organized crime self-value roles in nature's self-value because the methods are other than what the identities are being used for and countered for. They can't counter. Well, how do you know? In other words, they already use the FBI's New Haven location, Chicago location. They use the identity of the FBI, forged through contrast, as in collusion with prevented the free speech of Barack Obama. Now is preventing the free speech of Donald Trump, and it prevented the free speech of all presidents before them and leading up to that. These are people with the Wethersfield town offices through time recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with some sick organized crime acts and natures of judges, with Connecticut courts, and with Connecticut police, and with their uses of Wethersfield town offices. Now these are the fire departments, and these are people with programs of kids on and off campuses connected, like also connected to the fire station. Uses of identities in relationship to it. Everyone speaking through other. Follow mandated law for them now. So they have Wethersfield's police chief also involved with his foreign and domestic families on and off WFSB locations next to them. And they're using that to get the sense and sensibilities of a whole bunch of people to hide their predicate acts. They attach me and little kids to fake locations. They do stories when no one's watching real fast into the news, WFSB, through little kids, lying about their passions and emotions, forcing the lying to little kids in passion with overt criminal enterprises. Joshua Julia's and his crimes with them on and off a principal sex offenders campus with some Confederate flag themed and black and white female judges themed child sex offenders roles with their own predicate acts and with state's attorneys that forge names and switch names. Now these are people involved with FBI and with federal criminals and with overt criminal enterprises, also with associated illusions, crime acts on my street, and in reference to it with Facebook. There's a whole bunch of people tied to the Soto family. I never had a conversation with. I never had anything to do with the Soto family. I don't even know anything about them, but that and how they were used for roles with falsified police reports, identity theft, frauds, and racketeering with the people intercampuses with the interbranch and their family members, and on and off Hartford, Connecticut, on and off media locations. These are people all on and off the Department of Homeland Security. Since before that was that, since before the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, and with the transition from Organized Crime Control Act into the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, a whole bunch of other nations and our police were recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with live progressions from job sites that they had been using criminally, ignoring exceptions and exception nature to the wording of the law. For example, as is recorded, how they've been lying about what is actually recorded online over the mail, over the wires, on off Wethersfield Police Department location, on off New Britain Superior Court location, on off Hartford Court's locations, leading up to the Trade Center attack and since. And they lie about all sequences. And they forge and switch names. And they speak through others criminally with those threats. And the wire crime methods and mail crime methods. And sequential is also tied to inside of the Ninth Circuit Court, right next to the World Trade Center attack, right before it. The police forms and investigators, they persuade you not to talk any further because they're making things up. Former director of the FBI down. There's a John LeConte and associated with Don LeConte. There are a whole bunch of men and women at Central Connecticut State University and associated with schools in my town further involved with untimely deaths tied to their roles also with like abuses of little girls and of little boys and of elderly homes with the same ones. Uses roles with houses next to Zion Street through time. As the ones involved further here with the interstates, intercities, coordinated illusions, a Zano family recorded, confessed, and demonstrated that and confirmed involved with people with Bryan College and with Johnson and Wales and with in Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College, involved with them from off that location, wrongdoing roles with the predicate acts of prosecutors and of foreign and domestic medical families and of people associated all along the South Steam Highway, people associated with locations next to the South Steam Middle School, and his roles with my neighbors and with their extended family members with identity thefts, touching me and little kids, fake locations, fake ties to themselves, fake natures of ties to themselves, fake natures of ties to strangers, like with this Joshua Julian. Also, verbal federal crimes with overt criminal enterprises that were through time recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, pretending that they thought the real causes of predicate acts and wrongdoing and wrongdoers were other people when it was proven there were other killers. Now, those same people are still involved with child campuses criminally and having been like with this Joshua Julian. He's a whole bunch of people tied to the overt criminal enterprises and to the body dumping of spot of Billy Grasso, who are involved also with predicate acts with judges and with prosecutors on off Central Connecticut State University, InterSciences also, like a whole bunch of people tied to Jack Heitner. He sought me out to confess, demonstrate, confirm, and record his roles with physical delusions and his roles with sequence shifts and worse with others also associated with others. Like there's a used to be Dr. Gilmore, a female. I barely know of her. Associated with the corner house of Church Street and Main Street in Old Weathersfield, and with media predicate acts, stole meat to fake words, fake location. Now these are also families with other medical families. There's also men associated with her that attach me to fake relationships to themselves as doctors. Now there's also a whole bunch of Weathersfield police recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with sexual circles that made confessions about their abuses of Heather Hansen with judges and prosecutors, rolls with it. And she confirmed, demonstrated, confessed, recorded that true. And that's one of the ones with Central Connecticut State University, one of the ones I never had a class with. They had me in a summer school class so they could make an exception. How they use time too waste too fast, too slow. How they spread, pretend people are liars with strangers they don't know at all, and ones that we I only know of in context I have to speak about now because they're involved with predicate acts. They sought me out to make confessions as a stranger. And so we have the witness protection program also involved with my street. And this is in Weathersfield, Connecticut. The Britain Superior Court is two towns over. The Britain Central Connecticut State University also. They're bonded with on and off campuses rolls with dozens of people from my town on off the state judicial branch offices involved with databases, mail crime, wire crime, falsified police reports, identity thefts, frauds, sequence shifts. A whole bunch of people still further then and now with the principal sex offenders campus having had that tied to their uses of roles with other departments at Central Connecticut State University and their family members also involved with the predicate acts through time, wrongdoing through time, leading up to and in the World Trade Center attack context and since. Now these are military families. Also, there's a Rob Schedule who lives on the and I don't know where he lives, and his sister and his family associated with house on the south the southeast corner of where I went to kindergarten. And I never met him. I never knew him throughout school. There were like a couple times where he tried to pretend I knew him and his sister, or other people did. They had them like acting. And when I would walk by, because they try to, these are people that attach people to fake recorded words with officers, with their family members, on off Weathersfield Police Department, on off New Britain Superior Court, Hartford Courts, and when Fox, Connecticut News has roles with dozens of people involved with predicate acts with them. And with WFSB, they want it's a predicate act. For example, evidence is how they won't fix the fake words. And in response for the interbranch forged names, switching names, for attaching me to fake words, for attaching me to fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake ties to doctors also, right through the media. Then they hide their lie progressions. Then thank God the principal child offender got caught off campus for that, reportedly for voyeurism of little girls in a Walmart. Now there is a Mike Levine also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with police and forms and interbranch families associated with on-off Town Line Drive, where they're attaching everyone. They make people speak through other people, and they make responses or in no context at all. Like I never had a conversation with Mike Levine at all. Recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by one of the principal's child offender, proven. Then he was used. He was one of the people involved with more then and now that was not told on. It's got all kinds of ties to people on off Two Rod Highway, where it runs into Hang Dog Lane, into the Burlington Turnpike before the heart of Hartford, in those three locations at the end of it, associated with people involved with predicate acts on off Trinity College and on off CCSU and wrongdoing, but they're used their acts of judges and their family members involved with it. So they're preventing mandated law. They have been preventing writing since I was a kid, with the same ones intercities involved, intercampuses of each age and nature. Now, so they have fake Facebook pages, fake YouTube pages because of their uses already of all identity ground law positions as predators. They already use that, pretending other their uses of online platforms before they were where they were being trained on campuses. All exceptions used to get over on exception nature, logic scores. I'll drop the fours. Get them to one name and sequence into branch and to say sorry to the American to the parents of the schools. There are a great number of people of parents and their family members that have been pretending things, but that's going to break down because when you see they've been pretending things, they attach me to fake words, fake locations, fake words with them. Remember, they did this to force a principal sex offender and to force that not told them on with wire crimes too. They told them to lie about what was actually recorded of the wires. They hid the confessions related to a Mike Levine and to others I never had conversations with, involved with also with the pattern of predicate acts roles on off CCSU connected. Also as the ones on off the World Trade Center, on off the Ninth Circuit Court right next to it, right before and leading up to that, in the World Trade Center attack, as the ones further involved since it. Now it's illegal to. It's worse than war crimes to prevent our courts from being demonstrated how they were involved with organized crime with fact treatments and as their actually recorded natures and as their sequence shift roles, faking recorded things into databases with other nations. How they are motivated to that is also recorded. Respond to mandated law. My town's police chief is further with the campuses and with his daughter and with his not for the for the reasons apparent, his emotions and passions and dishonesty, and his roles with the predicate acts. And their extended family member. They were about that since before they were involved with this, and the people involved with this since before they met, probably. Like, I never had a class with them just because they were my grade. They're involved with private school kids that spread lies with them, illusions into the minds of other people that they then keep self-valued by perpetually kept criminally foreign influence, all locations, areas, and states, sciences, and campuses of each age and nature, sciences further. Then and all branches of government only allowed to be that roles with that. Lie progressions from their locations further and further to all locations kept needing to hide the same ones. Kept those lie progressions kept specifically to keep what is fluent through our nations undiscerned. Not one has learned. What needs weapons behind his back to pretend it's sophistication is not. You have delusions wrong. Psychology owes more money than nations need to be paradise. Is guardians of scientific value. So we have doctors attaching little kids to fake locations, fake relations to themselves, let alone what they did and do to their actual patients. You get them the judges to the one name and sequence too, because the various natures of courts, I caught them with crimes on and off campuses. That's what's actually recorded. They're lying. Oh, I don't see the evidences because they're lying about what is actually recorded online. They use Congress remotely this way too. Then they use Comey and Mueller, these names. Play game.